Okay, so hey guys, thanks for coming. Very, very exciting. Cameron, were you done or did you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Okay, cool. So if I can touch on Success Track real quick, just like a little teeny tiny example of that. I got a guy here today, right now, actually, who he's a guy, he sends me business. I've never met him in face to face. I really just talked to his processor, and he does the same. He's an LO, right? He does what you guys do. But just now we sat down for an hour at lunch, like totally changed our relationship just with that. So that's like why we try to bring you guys out here. I think that's the goal that I would have you guys do, trying to bring real estate agents out. It totally changes that, having that FaceTime with someone. It's really one of the biggest reasons why we do it, not just to train you guys, but that's a big relationship play too. So all right, so on to this here. So the thing we're going to go over today is the comparable amortization schedule. So an amortization schedule on its own, which again, I'm doing this AE splaining thing, like mansplaining, but like an AE. So just in case, you start from square one. Amortization schedule is the payment schedule for a mortgage, right? So when someone gets a mortgage, if it's a 360-month term, it's basically just how much of your payment goes towards principal, how much goes towards interest, what's the total payment, and how that works the whole way. Now, the cool thing about having a comparable amortization schedule is you can show like interest savings over the life of the loan over 5 years. And if someone is saying, hey, $100 a month isn't enough for me, you can say, hey, Cameron, I know $100 a month doesn't sound like much, but actually, if you apply that savings to the mortgage, or if you stay in it for 10 years, you're actually saving $17,000 or $15,000. And someone goes, oh, wow, you're going to long play. And that got me a lot of refis when I was working at Rocket. They teach that like in the class. Like it's one of the first things you learn how to sell is with the numbers. How do you make the deal make sense? And if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. But it's a good way to do it. So you can get this off of the source. And I know with Chat UWM now, it's a little bit difficult to get there. But all you got to do, go to Chat UWM, type in amortization. You can honestly click anything. Like, for example, this is what I do. Just to, I get logged out of UWM too. Okay, so Chat UWM. Just start a chat, right? This looks a little bit different than yours. Literally just click any prompt. And as soon as it's done thinking, I know I've probably gone over this before, but now I got FHA of this thing right here. If you click that, now you're in the source. Okay, so as soon as you get in here, bookmark this. This is, I would say that's anti to play stuff. Anyway, now you type in comparable amp schedule and you get this beautiful thing right here. Very, very fun to read. So the way this is formatted, on the left here, you have the borrower's current mortgage, the mortgage that they're in right now. Okay, so they got $650K. This is probably pretty standard for California. $650,000. They got 6.75% interest rate. It's a 30-year loan, and it does the math right there. It gives you the payment, how much they're paying. You can add in their total monthly debts there. We'll get to that later. But down below here, and forgive me, I'm a lowly account executive. I don't know how to unlock this to show you. But this second, that's worse. Okay, so this column here goes through month by month for the entire 30 years. And it says, hey, if you're in month 106, they're paying $1,000 towards the principal, $3,200 towards the interest. And so far they have $570 remaining on their balance. They've paid 80 grand and they've given us $366,000 towards interest, right? So you see right here, we're talking about big numbers. And this is 10 years into the loan. They've paid $400,000 in interest. Like, we're getting up to the loan amount there, and we're not even close to being done paying the loan off. So when you start showing people these kinds of things and how paying the mortgage off faster is really how they save money, they start thinking like you're on their side. You're not just working for the lender, like I'm trying to help you beat the system, Mr. Borrower, and this is how you do it. It's a really effective play. Does anybody know what TIP is? TIP? It shows up on a loan estimate. Total interest paid. So it's TIP, total interest paid. It's like it's always over the loan amount. So whatever they're borrowing, they're going to pay more than that just in interest, no matter what, on every mortgage they do. Your borrowers might ask you, what is this tip number? That's this at the end, right? So total interest paid on this 6.75, they borrowed 650, they paid me 867 just in interest. Nothing to do with their principal that they're paying. So you can see here right now that these numbers are huge, and like a 30-year debt carries a lot of interest. Anyway, that said, so coming back to this, we have our current loan right now. This is what the borrower is sitting in, and we're going to refinance them into something else, right? Now, this is what I come up with easy qualifier. Depending on how far in the loan, by the way, like I can see here, like if they're 8 months in, I can see their balance is 645, but obviously we're going to have some closing costs, some stuff. I typically don't like to have borrowers bring any cash flows on refinances unless it's a streamline or an EARL. So I add in a reasonable amount for closing costs. You might bump it up 10 grand just like to be safe. So if they're at 635, they're 2 years in, 645 is a reasonable starting loan amount just for this scenario. Okay. So now we can see right here, the system does the math for you. This is a 30-year loan. They're setting back the term. They're going to save $296 a month on the payment. Okay, so right there, that's easy math. That's no sweat. It's just the difference between these two numbers. Okay, so 4215, 3919. Now keep in mind this does not include their taxes and insurance. We can add that in. It's like no big deal, but I don't think that really plays into a mortgage savings calculation anyway, because we can't control that. It's not up to us. That's the city, and that's their HOI. They're going to deal with that on their own. So don't sweat that. This column right here, this little box, it shows you like life loan savings, which is where we get into these big numbers. So if I charge $7,000 to do this loan, right? I got $4,000 in origination and $3,000 in escrow payment or whatever the case is. I break even just short of 2 years. I'm going to save 22 grand in the next 5 years. So how they do that calculation, I go down to 5 years here, right? Now keep in mind you'd be at 294, but you're here, 213. It's the difference between these two numbers. Total interest accumulated. So how much money are you paying me to have this money versus how much money is going towards? And the crazy thing is, the lower the interest rate, you're actually giving a bigger portion of your payment each month towards the principal. So that's essentially right how we're adjusting the amortization schedule, is they're building equity faster in the loan. So you can see at 60 months for both of these loans, they've accumulated an extra $4,072 in their principal paid. I'm sorry it's so small, guys. I don't know how to. You guys know how to unlock an Excel file? Someone smarter than your average account executive?
No, that helped. Whatever you
okay. Okay, cool. I know it's like really small. Okay, so this is 60th month. So 213 in accumulated interest, and then 191 over here. And so this does the math for you all the way down, right? Now, one of my favorite plays, someone who says, hey, 300 bucks isn't enough for me, like how Matt always says in the sales huddle, some guy might like 60 bucks. Someone's like $500, go to hell. Like that's not good enough for me. Say, okay, $500 not enough for you. What if I'm applying it? You don't want to save the money? No problem. Don't save the money. Keep putting it towards your mortgage. So this extra payment right here is an option where you can fill out, let's say 296, right? We're going to put exactly 100% of the savings right back into the loan. No, sorry, I have to do this. Okay, so what that does, it's like you're making an extra payment. You're adding $300 to your mortgage payment every month. So right off the rip, this 60 month here, the 60th month, it was 43,000. Now we're at 64,000. So while I'm amortizing this mortgage on a 30-year term, I'm actually going to pay it off. Let's see here. There we go. I'm paying it off exactly 5 years before it's supposed to be done. So 612, right, is my total accumulated interest at that point, which I paid it off early. Paid it off in month 299 as my last payment. Now let's go to what they have here. So 30 years in, if they're not changing anything, they got They have $867,719 in TIP. Let's go back to this number. Where is that? Sorry, geez. There we go. Difference 612, 209. That's $255,000. So if they're saying, hey, Mr. Borrower, is this your forever home? Yeah, we got kids, we're gonna stay here, we like the school district. Cool. When you stay in this loan, you're gonna end up saving, the way I always like to say it is, you're gonna pay $250,000 more to not do anything than you are to do this mortgage, to do this refinance. And that, like, it has a profound impact on people. I think they start to go, Jesus, I'm paying 860 grand in interest to borrow my money. Like, like, how many of you guys knew what TIP was? Like, a lot of these people aren't thinking about this stuff. Everyone, it's a monthly payment. So one of the things that we say a lot is that nobody pays an interest rate. Everyone pays a payment. Like, don't worry about the rate. But this is a great way of turning that rate. So everyone says, I want a low rate, I want a low rate. You can actually turn this into real dollars, right? Show them what that looks like. That's one of the most impactful numbers you can show them. Life of loan savings. You can even say, hey, take half of that, put half of that in your pocket and put half of that in there. You're still going to end up saving a big chunk of change. So we're still at 678, right? So I think this is huge. I want a lot of deals doing this, especially people who like engineers, lawyers, types, doctors, stuff like that, people who are analytical and want to see the data. This is a great way to break it out. And if they're considering a third option, we do have that over here. There is that extra spot here. It's just, you can also just do it side by side for all of them. Now, okay, so that kind of, I think that's kind of a good starting place for now. Cameron, you want to add anything, or does anybody have any questions on that?
Whenever I've quoted people, so someone says, hey, where are interest rates at? You know, you get the details of where their loan amount is, you know, whatever they're looking to do. Obviously, cash out refinances are a little different. This is just for rate and term mostly. I mean, you could do that as well, but I pretty much just got onto Google Meets just like this, practiced it out loud one time. Hey, this is what it is. Make sure I went through all the numbers so that everything looked good. Charlie's available, can help with that. I can help with that. And then what I did is I just clicked record and said, you know, hey, so-and-so, just wanted to show you this so that you're kind of seeing the difference, because it's not just about how much money you're saving per month, but it's also interest. There's a few other things you have to look at. You know, here's the cost of the rate. Here's the third-party closing costs. Okay, so here would be, if we've built that into the loan, and you kind of calculate this so you're somewhat accurate, but I think it's good for a lot of you just to practice this as well. But I would practice it and record it and send me the recording that you feel comfortable with so that we can post this and put it on your own profile. Here's the thing is, the more the news starts talking about rates going down, the more likely people are going to start going to the internet to figure out, wait, how do I get a lower rate? What are the typical closing costs? And so, you know, I would have the AI take note, or Google Meets, have it take notes and have it transcribe your video. That way you can just put it into we can put into a blog post for you, put your video into the blog post, but you basically go over this like, hey, here's an example of someone we just refinanced, you know, they're at 6.75 with today, and with their current situation, we were only able to get them to 6.125. Here's what I want to look at that most people don't pay attention to is, you know, yeah, maybe the closing costs are $7,000, but look, some people like the fact that they're saving 290 whatever dollars. I can't really see it. 296.80. But you know, some people may want to save more. Okay, but here's the other thing you have to look at, and then break it down just like you're doing with a client. You know, put it on YouTube if I think YouTube's great, or just send me the video. We'll put it on our YouTube and then share it. I mean, I think it's better to put it on yours. But then we'll put it on your personally branded website as well, because that does get promoted. But here's the thing is, if you can practice this, because it does take some time to plug in the numbers, because you'll forget a box. Like I'll forget putting the rate cost or third party costs, year to month conversion. I guess you could do that too. There are things that I forgot to put, and I had to go back. And so when you get that first client, it's like the real estate agent, when they're writing their first contract, if they've never practiced and they've never done it before, it takes 2 hours to do with them. If they've practiced it, that time goes down to 45 minutes, if not 30 minutes. It's going to be the same for you. If you can practice doing this, because we all get busy, we all need to keep prospecting. Just because you get one person interested in refinancing doesn't mean that they're going to actually pull the trigger. And so it'll save you time, but it also make your video a lot cleaner and smoother. My videos, if anyone wants an example of one of my videos, it is not super straightforward. It's not supposed to be some beautiful presentation. I'm literally just going over, these examples and just showing it. I stutter over my words, but I say, it's up to you. But to me, I would say that saves a lot. Like there's a lot more you can do with your equity in the next 5 years if this is how much extra equity you may have, just from interest savings, not including values going up and things like that. Then when you end it, you always want to end it with something like, we can get this done pretty quickly. These are some of the documents we may need. It's usually going to be like, what are some good documents?
I always say your current mortgage statement, W-2 pay stub, and your homeowner's insurance declaration page. That was really the 4 things that I started with. Now I also need like their driver's license and stuff like that, but I can just take it. That takes 2 seconds, right? So, yeah. So.
And that kind of stuff's huge, and I'd say, if we can, depending on when we close you, what I can always do is I can give you an option if you feel comfortable with this, that if we were to close at the end of this month, so basically we get this done in the next 10 days, or at the start of the month, and that way you can see, what would save you more money, at closing or whatever it might be. And, some people want to bring money to closing, some don't. Just let me know if you do. But that way they're starting to think about like, okay, this is what I have to do to get this process going. Once again, always, if this is someone you've never talked to and that you're just sending them a quote, you're trying to get them to complete a full application online or saying yes, we don't pull credit until you really feel ready. We usually start with a soft pull from all 3 bureaus. And that way the credit bureaus also don't sell your information, because we opt you out of them selling you to tons of different people. But we'll start with the soft pull. That way you and I can really go over more numbers and figure out, hey, is this what you want to do? And then from there, we'll proceed with the hard pull. But that way it's no hit on your credit. Because sometimes you're going to find yourself sending this to people who just barely gave you a description of what they're looking to do over the phone. And because I've had this as well, and I don't have their mortgage statement, so it's hard for me to calculate the payoff and everything like that. But I can give them rough numbers where at least these savings in that 5-year interest savings, 7-year, it wins them over. Makes sense. Yeah. But this is good to practice now. Refinances will be coming up. Plus people have a lot of equity right now.
And one of the things that it's weird on this kind of on a similar strain here. One of the things I don't see like at all compared to when I was at Rocket versus in the broker side, I see like very, very few 15-year, I should say non-30-year, right? I see I'd say 99% of loans that come my way are 30-year loans. So now it is kind of a sign of the times. A lot of people are just looking to decrease their payment, which that's the way you do it. If you want to get a lower payment, 30-year mortgage. But if we go back to this little demonstration, let's call it 15-year. So look, they're negative 1270, right? They're increasing their payment by $1,200 a month, right? So it's few and far between that people are going to want to do this, but pitching options, being able to demonstrate this to somebody helps them understand it when you're going to use it to sell. Like, hey, just for instance, Mr. Borrower, we did a 15-year term. Let's go down here. Blah, blah.
And it's good that he's bringing it up to give options, because I have one closing, I think like, I don't know when it's closing, but they got quoted a much lower rate. And I kept thinking, how the heck did they get that low of a rate? Because it was a 15-year and they didn't bring it up to me. And so if you don't have any options to give to people, if it's just, hey, it should be conventional all day long, they have 40%, loan to value or whatever it is, pitch them a 15-year as well. Hey, you could always do a 15-year. Here's what the interest rates looks like on that. Because you just never know what someone else has presented to them. And they might be so focused on the interest rate. What?
And by the way, on a 15-year, your rate's going to be a lot better because there's no LLPAs. I don't know if that's a hot tip, by the way, but on 15-year loans, any 15-year and down, LLPAs are gone. So you're gonna get a little bit of a better rate. This is the third time that guy's called me. He's not taking no for an answer. Okay, so like 289 versus 877, like, hey, you can save. Now, obviously, you got to factor in the increased payment, but now you're making 15 years of no mortgage payment. So being able to show this stuff, I think it's big. There's so many directions you can take this tool to. I like to also make sure you kind of factor in how much they've already got. Like they got a sunk cost. If they're 2 years in, they have a sunk cost of 86 grand. That you can't get that back. There's no, right? But
you're not saying that to them.
I wouldn't necessarily point it out. Yeah, but there's lots of different ways. This is also good for cash out. Not to switch tracks too much here. Oh, we're not. But blended rate calculator.
Yeah, right? Cash out we'll probably do a whole separate training on.
All right, I won't get into it. But yeah, so that's also good for this. So anyway.
Because there's some tricks when you're getting it into underwriting that I'm learning.
There you go. I'd love to hear that myself. Okay, so I think that about covers it for me. I don't know. Is there anything I'm missing, Cameron? No.
That's it.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Charlie, I see, of course, everything on the far left side of the screen makes sense. In the break-even calculator and in the year-to-month conversion, where are those numbers coming from?
Yeah, this is just like, you could delete this, honestly. This is just like, hey, if I'm going to sell them a 16-year mortgage, how many months is that? So let's say 16, and it's going to tell me 192, and then I can put 192 over here to do my calculation.
Just doing the math for you. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so this, and then this break-even calculator, you're also entering this, okay? So if I put 0 in there, it's not gonna do it'll break the algorithm in the Excel, but what I'm doing is putting in the cost of the origination versus the closing cost, adding up my total cost of the loan, and then dividing it by the savings. That's how I get a break-even point.
Okay. So how did you get, or I guess I'm just asking, where are you calculating those numbers?
So what I would go to ease, right? I'd go to ease or an arrive, and I don't know how built out you guys have the fees and arrive at the point where you're getting to this point. No. Okay. So Cameron's saying no. So ease then. It'll show you how much you're charging. Factor in your compensation, cost of the rate, or less a credit for the rate, and so you end up with like let's pretend say okay. So we have.
So ease is I would transfer it over to UWM. Like if you get them completing the application, transfer it over. The smart fees with UWM, I feel like, are pretty accurate. For those of you who have access to Arrive, which I think on this call is just Mary and Julie, but it's too conservative. The fees are so high on that platform. It would just take me a long time to adjust it all. But yeah.
So I would take it from UWM.
Okay.
Also try to make sure it's good to put it through UWM because then you can also see if it's qualified for track or track light.
There we go. Track or track light. Yeah. Yeah. Track light is pretty cool. And we're giving basically now, by the way, if you use Track Plus, you can cut a borrower a check for $500 at the closing table, which is totally new to me. Like when I was, see, there we go, Tyler. Yeah. If I was selling that, I'd sell the shit out of that because we used to take $500 deposit for the appraisal, but all this stuff is great things. So does that answer your question, TJ? So I take the fees, let's say I'm charging a point in my origination, we got a par rate, and then I got $4,000 in escrow. I have 10,500 total cost. I'm saving $500 a month. I said almost 158 bips. I got a year and a half break even. That's a recoup. Now, speaking of recoup, touching on this, the VA says you're not doing a loan for our veterans unless they're recouping their costs within 36 months. So I used to usually tell people that and say, hey, the VA says you can't do it if it's over 36 months. So Mr. Borrower, 18 months is a great recuperation period on an investment like this. I'd say that the numbers can really show here that this makes sense. You like that? Yeah.
Like that.
So, yeah, and that's just a good. I would say like that's. If you go on Google, like I would used to Google this, it's like 12 months, which is ridiculous. You have to have a ton of savings. But anyway, okay, what else?
You said there were 4 documents that you need: current mortgage statement, W-2 pay stub, and deck page for the home insurance. Is that those are the 4?
Pretty much, yeah. And that's if you have someone who's go off AUS, but yeah, those 4 are great. And I used to always tell them on the app call, like, say, hey, I'm gonna get this stuff figured out. If you want, can you go home and grab for me? I don't know how you want to phrase this. I'm a little rusty, but if you want to go home and I'm gonna end up needing, just tell them in advance. So you're like, hey, I'm gonna need W-2, pay stub, deck page, and your mortgage statement. That way you're getting the ball rolling already, telling them, hey, I need to do this stuff, and they're gonna get the docs. So
Yeah, like when I record these videos, I send it to them and say, hey, in the email where you access this link, you'll have some to-do items. There's a link at the bottom where you can upload those documents in a safe, secure portal. But this is the kind of stuff that might take the longest. The insurance declaration page is nice because then you can see when their payment is due next. So they may, and that just changes some things. But same thing with the last insurance policy or last mortgage statement. You can see what's in their escrow account, right? If they're paying taxes at home, which is funny because a lot of people don't. You ask them, are you do you have an escrow account? Paying property taxes and homeowners insurance. I don't know how many times I've had people go, I don't know. What do you mean?
I would say,
do you pay yourself at the end of each year? They're like, let me think. I'm like, really? That means yes.
If you look at that from a lender's perspective, you can see why those exist for that exact reason. But yeah, it's because people have no idea. But they're going to get an escrow refund check unless it's with UWM. You can do a netted payoff, and which basically you're deducting that from there, and then you're most likely going to skip a payment, and that's cash in the bank right there. So I had people around Christmas time, and I kid you not, this is back when I was a little bit less scrupulous, but people who wanted to refinance just to skip a mortgage payment around Christmas time because it's $4,000 back in their pocket and they could save $20 a month in the payment. It's technically a benefit, but
it's worth advertising on social media. I would say that.
There you go. Yeah. Thank you, Cameron, for articulating that.
No, I think that's true. Like here's the thing is it's like, I used to be all about Dave Ramsey, and I'd say real estate agents and loan officers were the worst people because they're getting people into debt. Listen, people are going to buy it, and before I really understood the value of real estate. But here's the thing: is everyone's going to make their decision whether with or without you. Like, do I think refinancing to save $100 a month is worth it? I don't know, but there are people that, yes, 100% plus skipping a payment is worth it. So you present the information, you put that information out there like, hey, if you're looking to save money over the holidays and you close at this date, did you know you can, this is how that works. Your first payment wouldn't be due until whatever. And there's people out there that's what they're looking for, and they're going to find you online and they're going to say, hey, I'd love to hear more about it. I mean, we're presenting options. You understand, most of these loan officers say, oh, you've got 6.75. Yeah, I can get you a lower rate here. It's fine here. And that's really what they hear. And they don't realize, oh, my equity went away because they bought down my rate so much that it would take 4 years before my break-even point, or 5 years. But I just said, yes, let's go for it. So you even showing people this calendar, the amortization schedule, you're going to win over a lot of people, and in a very honest way, if that makes sense.
That's what I like about it, is that it's transparent. And
transparent,
what was I just going to say? Oh yeah, so an update used to be just Freddie, but speaking of like getting cash back, you can do rate and term refis now, both Fannie and Freddie, where the borrower gets point back or $2,000, whichever is more, on the loan at closing. So you can give them $6,500 at the closing table under a rate and term refinance. If they want to eat up their equity, like they're like, hey, I could use that right now. I don't mind increasing the mortgage payment by $30 a month to get $7,000. That's fine with me. Like a lot of people will say, yeah, I'll take that. Or if they had a little bit of expense, they pay for the appraisal up front. You want to give them a little cash inside. People love that stuff. So
Yeah,
a lot of options.
One spouse got laid off, the other one's still working, so they still qualify. This just happened to me. Do you want to take any extra cash out? Because I know you got laid off. Yes, we can do that. Yeah, sure. How
And
much?
it all starts from finding out what they want, right? Finding out goals, realistic goals, having a digging deep conversation up front about what's really best for them, asking a lot of questions, right? And that way they might not even ask, like, hey, I want that. You might be like, hey, I saw that Julie, she's out of work right now. Would it be helpful if you guys, oh my gosh, yeah. So stuff like that. And that's how you provide value, get referral clients and repeat business. So
Yeah,
anyway.
absolutely. It's worth putting that content out on the internet as well. As in, the more you guys post about this, the more we can link it back to your profile as well on our website, which just boosts the likelihood of you getting some clients.
Agreed.
Awesome.
Tons of content on Brand 360.
Yes.
All right. Anything else?